What if I told you that somewhere deep in Eastern Europe, hidden beneath the earth since 1945, there's a Nazi machine that never stopped running? Not a bomb, not a missile, something else. A device that doesn't rust, doesn't sleep, and according to secret Soviet documents was never fully understood. Why did an entire Soviet team go missing after discovering it? Why do NATO records show a spike in underground heat signatures near that same site even today? And what was the core module they sealed away with welded steel and classified reports? A machine that reportedly responded to human attention? Tonight, we're opening a file that was never supposed to see the light of day. Buried under the Sudeten Mountains in a forgotten Nazi complex codenamed Schwarze Echo lies a device that some believe is still alive. Welcome to the Null Brief. This is the war that never ended. They say the war ended in 1945. The guns went silent, the borders were redrawn, and the villains were punished, or so we were told. But what if something was left behind? Not a weapon in the traditional sense. Not a bomb. Not a tank. But a machine that doesn't rust, doesn't sleep, and, according to recently declassified Soviet files, may never have stopped running. In the forests of the Sudeten Mountains, buried beneath an abandoned mine, there's something that was never meant to be found again. The first clue came from a 1991 leaked KGB report filed under Operation Schwarze Echo. Black Echo. It referenced a sealed Nazi bunker discovered in 1951 by Soviet engineers conducting geological scans. What they found wasn't a weapons depot or archive. It was a subterranean labyrinth of reinforced corridors with no ventilation, no electrical grid, and no clear point of entry until one door opened on its own, triggered by an unknown seismic frequency. British and American military historians dismissed the Schwarze Echo files as Cold War propaganda, until private German researchers uncovered evidence that matched the documents. A map fragment showing a tunnel network under the Sudeten mountain range just inside the former German Czech border. This wasn't a typical military base. Its design resembled more a nerve system than a facility, long corridors that looped into themselves, with no signage and metallic walls that vibrated faintly at night. The most curious reference in the KGB archive was a name: Dr. Wilhelm Riker, a physicist with ties to the UNRB and Nazi occult research programs. Riker disappeared in March 1945. His name was erased from most records, but one letter survived, written in panic, addressed to Heinrich Himmler himself. It spoke of a machine that does not sleep, only waits, and warned that if it fell into enemy hands, it will rewrite us molecule by molecule. Riker's laboratory was reportedly located 300 meters beneath ground level, accessible only through a hydraulic shaft disguised as a well. The Soviets reached it by accident while detonating charges. To clear a collapsed tunnel, they triggered a mechanical system that opened the shaft door. What they found was not just intact machinery, but something still active, humming, blinking, alive. The central chamber held a spherical object suspended in a magnetic field, about 2 meters in diameter, with no visible seams or access ports. Soviet notes referred to it as the core module or core module. Attempts to touch it failed. Metal tools warped or vibrated violently when brought near. One technician tried approaching it with bare hands. He collapsed and reportedly spoke in reverse German for 3 minutes before dying of cardiac arrest. The walls of the chamber bore a repeated symbol, a spiraled eye with 3 lashes, painted in silver on black stone. No known Nazi unit used this emblem. Some Soviet analysts speculated it was a conceptual glyph, not a military insignia meant to convey perception, recursion, or even hypnosis. Others argued it wasn't a symbol at all, but a frequency diagram. Attempts to power down the facility failed. There were no wires, no visible energy source, yet the hum persisted. Thermographic imaging showed the sphere maintained a constant internal temperature of 37 C human body temperature. One scientist joked that it was alive. That was until a Geiger counter placed near the sphere began spiking rhythmically. as if responding to spoken words. By 1952, 3 more Soviet scientists had died or disappeared. One was found scribbling equations on his skin, another reciting biblical passages in Aramaic. The facility was shut down, welded, and buried beneath concrete. The last entry in the file reads, "Echo does not respond to silence. We have entombed it. May it forget us." The documents vanished from public view for decades. But in 2003, a Czech spelunker group exploring old mining tunnels stumbled upon a sealed metal door embedded in granite. It matched photographs from the Soviet archive. The air near the door was described as thicker, and compasses spun without stabilizing. The group reported ringing in their ears and vivid hallucinations for days after the encounter. A new investigation, led by German freelance journalist Anna Kessler, reignited public interest. Her report featured interviews with elderly Sudeten locals who recalled ghost lights above the mountain during the last days of the war. One man claimed his grandfather was part of a crew that hauled metal crates into the mine crates that sang when it rained. Kessler's research unearthed fragments of an unclassified U.S. Army report from 1946 referencing acoustic interference zones near the former Nazi Czech border. These zones reportedly disrupted shortwave radio and triggered seizures in test animals. The report suggested the Nazis had deployed experimental sound-based deterrents, but none were ever recovered. The implication was clear. Schwarze Echo was real. Independent scientists attempted to analyze samples from the site. One metallic fragment, no larger than a coin, was found to contain an isotope not matching any terrestrial element. When exposed to UV light, the metal emitted a pattern of pulses, like Morse code. Linguists tried to decode it, but the pattern shifted every 48 hours. In 2008, a Polish research team filed a restricted patent for a device mimicking the sphere's electromagnetic profile. Testing was halted when 2 interns developed temporary blindness. After exposure to a running prototype, their EEG scans reportedly showed synchronized delta wave bursts, a state associated with deep unconsciousness or trance. The patent was quietly withdrawn. The only confirmed survivor from the original Soviet investigation, Colonel Yuri Antonov, gave a single interview in 1995 before vanishing. He claimed the machine responded to emotional stimuli. "It was not made of circuits," he said. "It was made of attention. It sees you seeing it. That's when it begins to breathe." The UN later classified the Schwarze Echo site as an ecological hazard, sealing access under the guise of radiation. But new satellite imagery from 2021 showed ground disturbance consistent with underground movement. A recent tremor measured only inside the sealed zone lasted exactly 70 seconds, matching the pulse pattern recorded from the core module in 1951. Today, the official position is that no such facility exists. No files remain, no witnesses alive. But the hum has returned. Locals say their dogs avoid the forest. Radios cut out between 4:03 and 4:05 every morning. Children dream of a black eye that never blinks, and beneath the ground, something still waits. When journalist Anna Kessler's report circulated through alternative news forums, one message stood out. It came from a man identifying himself only as V.M., claiming to be the son of a Czech electrical engineer who briefly worked near the Schwarze Echo site in the winter of 1944. The message included a map hand-drawn and water-damaged with what appeared to be access points into the tunnel system no official records had mentioned. Researchers dismissed the map as a hoax until one of the coordinates aligned perfectly with a strange soil anomaly detected in a 1978 geophysical survey. At that location, ground-penetrating radar showed what looked like a perfect sphere, buried 90 meters deep. No mining equipment could have carved it. Attempts to excavate led to inexplicable equipment failures, gears stripped themselves, fuel lines cracked, and even nearby digital watches began to lose time. In 2012, a Tatron mountain rescue team responding to a distress signal stumbled into a cavern where none should have existed. One rescuer, Janos Fulik, described a metallic room that seemed to stretch sideways like a reflection. He said he saw someone inside, an old man with a thin white beard, standing motionless. When fully called out, the man replied with his own voice, seconds before the echo. Fullick's body cam recorded only 30 seconds of footage, then the file corrupted. Analysts later found embedded metadata anomalies suggesting the camera had recorded several hours. Compressed into a single digital fragment, audio analysis revealed a low-frequency vibration, overlaying all footage, consistent with infrasonic frequencies known to induce unease and nausea in humans. The presence of infrasound led some to theorize that Schwarze Echo was designed as a psychological weapon. The Nazis may have been testing the boundaries of fear not through violence, but through architecture and resonance. Blueprints found in Rehearsed old university archives show design patterns identical to those used in echoic memory research decades later. A team from the University of Dresden attempted to recreate the tunnel design using 3D modeling software. Even the simulation caused motion sickness in viewers after extended exposure. The walls were designed not to reflect sound but to trap it, hold it like a memory, and release it unpredictably. The structure didn't resonate with voices. It remembered them. In 2015, a team of amateur explorers calling themselves Null attempted to locate the core module. Using sonar triangulation, they never returned. Weeks later, a local shepherd discovered a broken drone with an intact SD card. The card contained partial footage twisting corridors, voices speaking out of sync, and what appeared to be a man standing perfectly still, blinking backward. Psychologists reviewing the footage noticed that the man's movements didn't align with standard human behavior. His breathing was delayed, almost reactive, as if he were responding to something before it happened. One analyst compared the effect to temporal inversion, a phenomenon proposed in quantum cognition, but never observed under real-world conditions. Government authorities denied any knowledge of Null, but a leaked email from the Czech Ministry of Interior showed internal debate over whether to issue a radiation alert. The email referenced a term found nowhere else, neurostatic event. No explanation followed. The term was later linked to NATO's psychological warfare training documents, also classified. In 2018, a linguist named Dr. Elsie Radek visited the region to study the symbol found throughout the bunker, the spiraled eye. She had no prior affiliation with military research. Weeks later, she published a paper proposing that the symbol was not a letter or image, but a linguistic virus, a pattern that, once internalized, altered the way the brain structured memory. Her claim sparked academic outrage. But then, strange things happened. Radek went missing. Her university claimed she'd taken a sabbatical, but friends reported she'd spoken of hearing memories that weren't hers. One student said she began writing backwards fluent sentences, grammatically correct, all with inverted syntax. Her apartment was cleared. Her notes were never recovered. A retired Polish intelligence officer came forward with a chilling account. In 1994, he claimed a NATO team made brief contact with the core module using fiber optic cameras. What they saw was not the metal sphere reported in 1951. Instead, they found what appeared to be a room filled with floating text phrases, dates, names suspended in the air, slowly rotating. He said the team attempted to record the symbols, but each time they reviewed the footage, the words were different. One man began to see his own childhood diary entries among the floating text. Another saw names of people he had never met, but who later appeared in real news reports as missing or deceased. Efforts to model the chamber's effect on human cognition proved disastrous. An artificial intelligence system trained on 2,000 hours of footage from the site began producing bizarre output: inverted timestamps, recursive dialogue, and self-referencing commands. One generated line read, "You remember the war before you lived it." Engineers shut down the project. The logs were deleted. But the war wasn't over, not for Schwarze Echo. In 2020, a series of low tremors rocked the Sudeten Mountains. Locals reported hearing rhythmic knocking from underground, like machinery starting up after a long rest. Wildlife vanished. An entire school of birds was found dead in perfect formation. Their eyes scorched, but bodies untouched. Drone footage from near the site showed symbols drawn into the frost circles within circles. No footprints, no drag marks, just geometrically perfect glyphs. Satellite weather data indicated no wind patterns that could account for the etchings. Experts theorized electrostatic discharge. But one physicist simply wrote, "It's remembering again." The Czech government issued a temporary airspace restriction over the region for environmental research, but a whistleblower provided infrared data showing a spike in underground heat signatures matching, again, the precise body temperature of a human. No natural geothermal explanation existed. The dome that had been built to seal the site showed internal pressure, expanding outward. A final clue came from an unlikely source, a Vatican archivist who, under condition of anonymity, revealed that a Jesuit mission had visited the Sudeten area in 1946. Their notes, he said, described an echo of Eden, a place where memory walked and thoughts ripened before action. The Jesuits believed it was a divine error, a mirror that was never meant to face us. Today, no one officially acknowledges Schwarze Echo. It doesn't exist on maps. Its entrances are erased. But if you go near the edge of the forest and really listen, you might hear it. Not a sound, but a shape, a vibration, a rhythm your bones recognize before your brain does. And once you hear it, it remembers you too. By 2022, private interest in Schwarze Echo had grown beyond conspiracy forums. A startup in Berlin, Noctivox Research, acquired satellite land rights near the Sudeten Mountains, claiming to search for rare earth minerals. But internal documents revealed a different focus: electromagnetic anomalies and acoustic cavities consistent with reports from the Schwarze Echo zone. Noctivox deployed a fleet of autonomous ground vehicles. Most failed within hours. One, however, transmitted a signal that stunned analysts, a repeating pulse in Morse code. That spelled only one phrase: "I remember you." The phrase repeated 33 times before the signal stopped. What followed was silence until a freelance radio technician in Slovakia picked up the same phrase. On a frequency unused since the Cold War, the signal originated from beneath the earth, not bounced from a satellite. He shared his recording online. The file was removed within 24 hours. His YouTube channel was terminated. He has not been heard from since. Speculation now grew more intense. Some said Schwarze Echo was a Nazi superweapon powered by human consciousness. Others believed it was a failed attempt to contact something extraterrestrial. A minority even claimed the machine wasn't built, it was found, buried there long before the Third Reich. The Nazis merely awoke it. That theory gained traction after a fragment of an ancient Babylonian tablet was found in the Berlin Museum archives. It described a gate of repetition sealed beneath the mountain of the north. The symbols on the tablet bore disturbing similarities to those recorded in the Schwarze Echo chamber. Archaeologists dismissed the connection. Linguists didn't. A whistleblower from Noctivox claimed they had made direct interface with the core module. Not physically, but cognitively. He said the machine responded to shared memory, pulling from collective human thought. When exposed to stories, songs, or emotions, it activated, not violently, but with interest. It listened. His report described the sensation of being remembered, as though the machine stored more than data. It stored versions of people, choices they might have made, lives never lived. And once you entered its radius, those potential lives began leaking into reality. In 2023, during a rare seismic scan of the Schwarze Echo region, tremors registered in binary rhythm. Geologists dismissed it as coincidental. Mathematicians didn't. When converted, the pattern spelled coordinates, not of the site but of personal locations, hospitals, cemeteries, childhood homes of those reviewing the data. The implication was chilling. The system knew who was watching. One researcher, Dr. Helena Crow, abandoned her work after claiming she dreamed of the war every night. Not the one we know, but a war where different nations won, different weapons were used. And different people died. In one dream, she claimed. She was a soldier, not a scientist, and she remembered dying. In detail. What disturbed her most? She never served, never held a weapon, yet her dreams had dates, names, topography, and language she had never studied. When she drew a map from one dream, it matched an alternate border layout proposed in secret Nazi contingency documents. These findings caused a ripple in intelligence communities. Whispers emerged of a living war engine. A thought experiment turned reality. Schwarze Echo wasn't meant to destroy enemies. It was meant to rehearse reality, simulate it, predict it, and perhaps shape it. A declassified OS memo from 1947 stated, "The machine does not kill. It remembers. In doing so, it suggests. The line between suggestion and causation remains blurred." The memo ended with a handwritten note. History is a soft material. Memory is the mold. In early 2024, an anonymous source released an encrypted video allegedly taken inside Schwarze Echo. It showed a hallway with no visible light source, yet the space was illuminated. Whispers played in reverse. On the wall, a message etched in multiple languages. "You are not the first version of you." Analysis of the video showed no compression artifacts. The lighting had no shadows. Experts said it wasn't CGI, if fake. It was produced with a level of technology that surpassed anything publicly available. And then, as suddenly as it began, the signal stopped. No tremors, no noise. The forest grew quiet again. But silence isn't absence. It's potential. Local children begin drawing symbols in their sleep, the same spirals, the same glyphs. Some claimed to hear music when walking near the old mine. Others said they felt as if they were being watched from within. Psychologists called it hysteria. Engineers called it interference. We call it unfinished because somewhere, deep beneath the rock, in a room built without blueprints, surrounded by walls that forget nothing, a machine still waits. And maybe, just maybe, it's listening now. Welcome to the Null Brief. This was the war that never ended. Let the echoes continue.